Great. Well, thanks for joining me, Todd. We have been talking to a lot of different lenders about how the pandemic has been shaping the lending market and especially focusing on personal loans. So yeah, there's just so much uncertainty right now that we're just trying to get a grasp of how things are going to change and how things are working now. So we wanted to ask, we understand that LightStream is offering deferred payments to those affected by COVID-19. Do you have any other hardship programs that you offer or plan on offering as social assistance? Like unemployment benefits are becoming more limited. So we were wondering if you had anything in the works that would sort of supplement that.
Yeah, so today for LightStream, we are offering our customers the ability to defer their payments. So if they're suffering from some kind of financial hardship, they've lost their job or their hours have been cut back or their source of income has dried up a bit, we're allowing them to defer payments on a monthly basis, and they can do so in subsequent months. We've actually built out some self-service capabilities so that they can log into the LightStream website and defer their payments on their own. So it really makes it easy for them to do. And then we'll allow them to make up those payments before the end of the loan. So they can, once they regain their income, they can start making additional payments, or they can wait to the end and pay it all off at the end.
Oh, okay. So are you extending the loan term, or is it just added on as additional payments or a balloon payment at the end?
Just adding on the loan amounts later, so the term doesn't actually get any longer. They'll just have the ability to catch up on those payments as they get toward the close of their loan.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I was wondering also if they had to provide any proof of financial hardship, or if this is something that all LightStream borrowers can apply for.
I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you. So I'll have to follow up and give you that information, because it's not something I have on the top of my head.
Oh yeah, I mean, it just sort of came to me, so that's totally okay.
No worries.
So we hear that it's harder to get a personal loan now than it was 5 months ago before the pandemic. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I think it's true. I think it's true broadly in lending. I think the COVID crisis has forced lenders to pay attention to their credit. I think, the rising unemployment rates, there's some additional risk factors at play. And so we have gotten a little bit more conservative, but I would say this: by and large, LightStream is a lender that makes loans to people that have a strong credit history, sufficient income and assets. And so we're not making loans to people who, generally speaking, are suffering financial stress. It's just not our target customer. So while we're a little tighter from a credit perspective today, we're still very much open for business.
Great. So have you noticed a drop in loan applications off the top of your head?
We did, but since March, we've really seen a couple things happen. Toward the end of March is sort of the very beginning of a lot of the states and local places shutting down. We saw demand just fall off broadly as people were uncertain. They were uncertain about their employment. They're uncertain about their plans for the next several months. And so lots of big ticket purchases tended to get put off. And now that we're several months into this, I think the folks who are economically stable, who have a stable source of income, they're rethinking how they're spending money a little bit. Certainly most banks have seen the incidence of savings rise quite a bit during this crisis. But we have seen some areas of pickup where people who may have been spending money going on vacations or making other purchases aren't able to do so and are now looking for other types of opportunities. And so, as most of us are working from home, either full-time or a lot, it's not surprising that our demand for things like home improvement loans have gone up dramatically. So, you're in your home 24/7, you're looking at all those projects that you wish you'd done, or now you desperately need a home office. Those things have become a priority for a lot of Americans, and so they're investing in their home. The other thing that we've seen is an uptick in demand for things like boats and recreational vehicles, RVs, because again, can't go on vacation this year. but you might be able to buy a boat or some side-by-sides and get out with your family to find a different way to find recreation.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I can tell you from personal experience that home improvement is something that is on my mind all the time. I actually wanted to ask you about that. I saw that you had a study that was released about that, I think. I was wondering what kind of advice you would give to borrowers looking to finance home improvement projects.
I say LightStream does an annual home improvement survey. I think we've done it 6 years in a row. We typically field it in the first quarter, and then we announce the findings in March. And this year, we actually went out because of the pandemic and fielded a second supplement just to check to see if the things that we heard early in the year were still consistent as the pandemic said. And what we saw that even more people were planning on doing home improvement projects this year versus last year. Almost 2/3 of the people, or actually closer to 3/4 maybe, the people we surveyed were planning on doing some kind of home improvement project this year. And based on the applications that we've seen, clearly that's proved to be true. In terms of what a consumer needs to think about when they're planning a home improvement project, it really starts in the planning phase. It's about setting a budget, understanding what makes sense for you. These things can very quickly get super expensive as one small project. Well, I can also add this, and maybe if I'm doing that, I should this and this. I think it's really important for all consumers to set a budget, have a plan, do their homework, research the types of things that you want to do. Obviously, do your homework on the contractors that you're planning on using. You're going to do the work yourself. Research the materials, any finishings, appliance, all of those things add up, and really paying attention to everything. Get multiple bids from contractors. But once you know what the scope of your project is, who's going to do the work, how long it's going to take, at that point, they need to do their homework around financing and paying for it. Is this something that they can pay for out of savings, something that they feel comfortable putting on a credit card? Or if it's a larger ticket project, do they want to look for affordable financing? And that's where LightStream comes in. We can allow a consumer to borrow up to $100,000 for any type of project. And maybe more importantly, get a very attractive interest rate and have the ability to have the money in their account as quickly as the same day, so they become a cash buyer for everything that they purchase under the project.
So are there any types of projects that LightStream is more likely to fund in terms of home improvement?
No, again, because it's an unsecured loan, we're pretty agnostic to the project. We're really just going to underwrite the consumer. We're going to look at their credit history, their income, their assets, and they can use the funds for any type of home improvement project. Beyond home improvement, obviously, again, it being an unsecured loan, we make loans for all kinds of things, almost anything. So cars, motorcycles, aircraft, RVs. We do medical loans, debt consolidation, fertility, horses, adoption, tiny homes, you name it. So just about everything is fair game.
That's great. It's helpful when an unsecured loan doesn't tie you down to a specific type of project.
It's a real
I was
benefit.
wondering, it really is. I was wondering when you would recommend a loan over a line of credit for home improvement, since those costs can be so hard to predict.
So typically, loans of credit are attached to home equity. Right? So I think lots of folks are familiar with home equity lines of credit. They require a few different things, though. So a home equity line of credit is a little bit more paper intensive typically. It's also going to be based on the amount of equity a consumer has in their home. So depending on the balance of their outstanding mortgage and the value of their home, they may or may not be able to do a home equity loan. So there are some limitations there with home equity loans, that there needs to be a sufficient amount of equity in order to borrow against it. And generally speaking, it takes a little longer because you need an appraisal or some other paperwork. So funding and applying for a home equity loan can often take weeks or even a couple of months. And again, the beauty of an unsecured loan is they can apply today and have the money in their checking account this afternoon.
What about an unsecured line of credit?
I'm not as familiar with those products. I haven't seen a lot of them. Most of the unsecured products that I'm familiar with are either installment loans like LightStream or credit cards, right, that are
Right.
facilitated through a piece of plastic. I'm familiar with unsecured lines of credit.
Yeah, it seems like there aren't nearly as many options when it comes to those.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you had any general advice for borrowers who wanted to increase their chances of approval, maybe someone who was really close to being able to be approved for a LightStream, but just had a few things off.
Yep. And I'll explain a little bit about how we underwrite a consumer. We're trying to take a very holistic approach to underwriting. So, we're certainly going to look at their credit history. We will look at their credit score. But one of the misnomers of lending is that credit score is everything that lenders care about. That's really not true. So, a score is supposed to be kind of a placeholder for someone's relative creditworthiness. But what we find to be, more interesting and more telling is really the depth and breadth of someone's credit history, how they've used credit in the past, have they paid their bills on time, do they have more debt than their income can support? Obviously, looking at their income, their sources of income, if they have multiple sources of income, and also assets. Do they have money that they put away in checking or savings? Do they have money put away, set aside for retirement or a rainy day fund or a pension? That holistic look of their kind of financial equation is really how LightStream underwrites. From a consumer's perspective, I think in order to establish and maintain a good credit history, it's really important to be very careful and cautious about when you apply for a loan, making sure that if you take out a loan that you always pay your bills on time, that you're not taking on more debt than you can reasonably manage. And it's also smart to have some kind of rainy day fund. So in case an emergency pops up, you have the ability to take care of it and not be completely leveraged to the hilt.
I think we can all agree that a rainy day fund is particularly important right now.
For sure.
My last question is, do you plan on offering any products like student loans or business loans in the future?
So LightStream is part of Truist Bank,
Right.
which is the merger of BB&T and SunTrust. So combined now, Truist is the 6th largest bank in the country.
Mm-hmm.
LightStream's product set today is limited to unsecured loans. And so we don't today offer business loans or student loans. However, Truist does. In fact, Truist has a full suite of loan and leasing products in both commercial and consumer lending. So while I don't know that LightStream have those product offerings in soon, Truist, our parent company, has all of that stuff.
Right. Okay, that does make sense. And those would have come through BB&T originally, or
some BB&T, some of them SunTrust, but
right.
But the combined entity literally offers almost every type of consumer and commercial lending product you can imagine.
Great. Well, thank you. Is there anything you would like to add at the
Well,
end?
make sure that again, for your borrowers that are looking for loan amounts up to $100,000 for almost any type of consumer purchase. If you've got good credit and income, we would strongly encourage you to take a look at LightStream. We've got a great product. I think we're the only lender that I've ever worked for that offers both a rate beat guarantee, where if you find a lower rate for an unsecured loan product than what we offer, we'll beat your rate by 10 basis points, as well as a loan experience guarantee. And that tells a consumer, if you take a loan from LightStream and you're dissatisfied with any part of it, we'll pay you $100 to tell us about your experience. It's not that we don't make mistakes. We do on occasion. We certainly want to know when we do. But by and large, we know we've got a great experience, and we're willing to put our money where our mouth is.
Great. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
My pleasure.